You know, again, there's something about the way that Kyle Craft can paint a scene, even if there isn't much of a narrative this time, that can be just so damn enticing. The irrational part of me just wants to live in the harmonica and accordion-soaked world of his music, and the rational part of me is not that far behind. Granted, I'm not sure if I'd want to be Kyle Craft in this song, where he hoists a glass to a woman that he mostly failed to satisfy, but what I appreciate is that there's no anger or resentment in the song, or just a bleary-eyed sense of bemusement that it happened and now he's gonna stumble into a bar and celebrate it. Hell, it's the Lonely Island's version of I Had Sex for the indie rock generation. The fiddles are lush, the final verses are infectious, and Kyle Craft is gonna make the whole thing have a hangdog perseverance that I don't know how you can resist. Oh, and a fantastic song to boot from an album that deserves so much more praise. Check this out.
But you know if I waste my time talking about what ain't mine.
Yeah, Brockhampton's gonna make this list twice this year, and really, what a song this is. The boy band's always had a knack for anthemic moments that are too raw and organic to be manufactured, and their auto-tuned power ballad moment here might just be one of their best. A look back to where they had came from, where they're all clinging to in the meantime, and all presented with an unflinching honesty that earns that rich choral outro against the shimmering guitars that almost recall Oasis in that uncompromising, earnest swell. But hey, it's been years that we got anything of quality from the Gallagher brothers, and we haven't run out of a need for Oasis songs like this, so yeah, if we're gonna get it from Brockhampton, I'll take it.
Bend the law, cut the rules. I'm about to risk it all. I ain't got too much to lose. Y'all been eating long enough. It's my turn to cut the food. Pass the plate with my drink. This my day. Lucky you. Fuck you too. Woo!
It feels strange putting this here. Putting an Eminem track on a list of the best songs of 2018. Hell, given the loss Joyner Lucas suffered to Tory Lanez, sorry Royce, he did kind of suffer that loss, it feels weird putting him here too. But there's an artistic chemistry, a sense of foreboding, and pure desperation that makes Lucky You easily the soul-redeeming moment off of Kamikaze, even if you can spot the moments where both artists are cribbing from Denzel Curry and Kendrick Lamar and even Ski Mask the Slump God in order to do it. And look, it might be tired for Eminem to take cheap shots at Drake for ghostwriting and mainstream trap rappers for obvious reasons, especially when he's got his own fair share of rapping songs about disjointed topics, and it's easy for me to call hypocrites, but when the flows are leaps and bounds ahead of the competition and there actually is a real sense of tension behind the song and a good hook, and yeah, I don't think anyone can deny that this works, if only for a moment.
I dumb down my head so I can feel my heart pound. A blackout.
So, remember when I put Def Havana's Happiness on my list last year and didn't really provide a lot of an explanation because it was way too real and intimate? Yeah, Blackout by Ruston Kelly is damn near close to the same territory for me in 2018. The sort of song I didn't know I needed throughout the year until I got it at the very end. And it's the introverted deep cut that I already know fans will be celebrating even if it's never made to be a single. It's raw, it's a little uncomfortably intimate in its spiraling burnout. The harmonicas might blare, but Ruston Kelly amps back the scope and can play with much tighter framing very well. Even details like the reference to LeBron on the second verse, which I initially didn't quite like, but it only serves to add to its realness and closeness to my situation. And that's about as much as I need to say, so glad that I caught this before the end of the year, man. Terrific song.
I never once called you baby. I always thought you were more to me.
So yeah, I'll say it again. I'm still very much annoyed at Pitchfork's willful misinterpretation of Kyle Craft's album and his music as a whole, attempting to tack on a branding and narrative of misogyny that was a painful overreach at best and screamingly dishonest at worst. And if I'm looking for the most stirring rebuttal of that critique, it's this song. Kyle Craft actually telling the story of a relationship that went south, most because he never made the right move and she moved on for a guy who was stable. And while he always thought that she meant more beyond some cheap words of affection, there's no resentment or bitterness towards her. If anything, it's his fault for not saying anything. And his mature acceptance of her path reminds me a lot of the Turnpike Troubadour's excellent song Pay No Rent. And even just in terms of sheer quotable lines, this is probably even better. The strained, warm acoustics, the horns, the textured pianos. It's that ballad for that girl who got away, and really, damn great one.
I know everyone goes someday. I know my body's fragile, know it's made from clay. But if I have to go, I pray my soul is still eternal and my mama don't forget about me.
The second Noname said she needed D'Angelo on this one, she clinched a spot for this song on this list with all of its fractured guitar lines, the gorgeous wells of string, and the jazzy percussion. It's a song where Noname muses her way through an LA vista and everything both deeply beautiful and deeply sad beneath it. I love the detail and the lack of judgment for everyone. I love Noname's innocence tempered with her wisdom. And I love how it can blend from both old Hollywood touches with something that's very new and still rooted in the Chicago hip-hop of her roots. In short, yeah, if there's a Noname song that really connected for me on a profoundly wistful level, it's this one, and deserves a lot more attention. So I'll have some more to say about the Wonder Years' newest album a little bit later, spoilers, but the one thing that I admire a tremendous amount about that project is for all of its dark alternative rock tones and embrace of stormy atmosphere, there is a core of optimism and a belief in the goodness of humanity that you might not even know that you really don't see to the same degree in this brand of pop punk or rock. It's dark for sure, but tempered by that light within, and the title track is by far the best example of it. The massive multi-track hook coursing off the manic bass line and the roaring guitars, and despite how much Dan Campbell might expect the worst in panic desperation, he finds solace and sells it with a ton of power. And maybe I'm just a sucker for this brand of optimism, but when you pair with such a powerfully emotive performance, yeah, this is the sort of pop punk alternative rock anthem I can really get behind.
Don't be alarmed, this is just my vibe. No need to walk around. No, it's not too bad a crime.
So by some miracle, a karaoke version of this song got added to YouTube, and it joined my regular rotation. If only because the juxtaposition of wild details and creeping dread tends to be a fun mood to set at your average karaoke bar. But yeah, even without that, while it's not quite my favorite Father John Misty song, Mr. Tillman is a sort of deeply surreal, quietly revealing cut that can't help but make you wonder why Josh Tillman's holding up in this hotel and then pounding back an alarming amount of alcohol, with the mundanity of the frustrated receptionist only intensifying that feeling that something is otherwise very deeply wrong. But otherwise, look, as a slice of deconstructed 70s AM rock with just enough glitchy production elements to highlight that something is very much amiss, and when a song this soothing can make me this nervous, yeah, definitely doing something right.
Don't try to take my country, I will defend my land. I'm not crazy, baby. No, I'm American. I'm American.
So one thing I don't think Janelle Monae got credit for on Dirty Computer, besides everything, is her subversion of quintessential American iconography. And while I've always been something of a fan of this, Americans goes above and beyond by grabbing up chunks of what could be seen as evangelical or conservative language and production, and then slightly bending it with touches of auto-tune and trap percussion, taking nuclear family language and then making it very, very gay in a very sexually provocative way, or then highlighting how those angels clapping, they might be fallen. And if anything, it gives the song a real heavenly swell that few matched this year, the sort of utopian vision that the backing preacher doesn't even hesitate to spell out. And I love how Janelle Monae doesn't end the song with immediate certainty that this is the future. She asks you to sign your name on the dotted line. Put your money where your mouth is. It's a loaded song. It's a daring song, especially given how much it outright spells out that path forward, and it's not an easy path, but sometimes you need that. And Janelle Monae, she can and will deliver.
I wanted it so bad and now I just wanna go home. This town is killing me. This town is killing me.
I mean, surprise? Look, the second I heard Starfire, I knew this would be on my list. It's Caitlyn Smith's version of Leaving Nashville, my favorite song of 2016. And it turns out her brand of the same formula works incredibly well. I love the restraint in the country instrumentation. I love how she cast her artistic passion against an indifferent and increasingly corporate audience. And when she describes the toll that it's taking on her life and her family, it just raises a lump in my throat every time. I've been that overworked. It might be the most obvious song coming from an artist who might well remain an indie darling so long as Nashville refused to put women on the radio, likely out of cowardice, but sometimes the obvious answer is the right one. And this song kills me every time.
We all have a hunger. We all have a hunger.
Okay, no, it's not What Kind of Man. I'm not sure Florence and the Machine will ever match that in the near future, just in terms of pure concentrated crescendo and searing rage. But man alive, when I saw her live, this hit like a ton of bricks. The sort of powerhouse that Florence and the Machine are built to deliver in spades. And what works about Hunger, beyond the huge hook, the driving pianos, and Florence's terrific belting, it's how it serves as both the inverse of the end of love, but also spurs the rising, insatiable passions all the same and feeds into them. It's a song that craves release and satisfaction in all dimensions, and that gives it layers beyond just the physical and emotional, also including artistic drive and the fleeting moments of triumphant satisfaction when something is satisfied, actually gets there. In other words, the sooner this becomes a karaoke staple for all the Florence and the Machine fans, the better off we'll all be, because this song kicks ass. So when Idols described their newest album as containing elements of snowflake oi, it was a sort of contradiction that made no sense and yet all the sense in the damn world. And only this band would build up a fiery punk anthem to celebrating diversity and immigration with a sort of blisteringly quick interweaving guitar melodies, the pulsating bass, and Joe Talbot's guttural howl. And what I adore is how damn joyous this song is, stuffing the track full of references to immigrants who became idolized in the UK, even if people didn't know they were immigrants, and yet those who are just like everyone else, like the titular character, all the while making what might be the goofiest Star Wars prequels reference on the hook that I have ever heard. Hell, probably one of the only Star Wars prequel references I've heard in punk. And while I don't normally cite videos here, the daring of this band actually trying to reclaim the OK sign from fascist by having it delivered by everybody a fascist would hate, yeah. Nice to be on the right side of history with these guys, especially when the music is this goddamn awesome.
Like a planet rose garden for you.
Alright, look. I'm not saying that Rae Morris chose to end her set at Reading Festival with this deep cut because I was there, and I may have made the statement in previous videos that this is her best song by a considerable margin for the way that it's stuttered beat and striking piano hook and beautiful arranged elements that complement that groove and her voice splitting the difference between Joanna Newsom and any number of mainstream pop artists. I'm not saying it's because of all that. I'm just saying that it happened. And the fact that she was smart enough to leverage her very best song in that way, it shows a ton of promise for an up-and-coming artist in pop that I really want to see get a lot bigger. Because, yeah, this might be one of the best pop and one of the most accessible pop songs of this decade. And even if it won't be a single, Rae Morris deserves all the credit in the world for it. Beautiful song. I'm starting to come to the stark realization that Albert Hammond Jr. of all people might have made the best Strokes song in over 15 years, and probably the best thing to come out of anything associated with that act, including The Voids. Yes, I'm going there. Because, yeah, like most Strokes songs, there's not a lot to really explain about a razor-tight bass line, a great melodic guitar line, and a brilliant hook, but when it hits this well, with just enough bemusement in his vocals to highlight how Hammond Jr. is just getting dragged along for this manic ride, nobody needs to complain. In a better world, people would remember this song as much as, say, Last Night or Reptilia. Let's make that world a little bit better and make that happen. Shall we?
Can't get back to when September was our only adversary. In the light behind St. Mary's.
So no, The Tree is not Lori McKenna's best album, and when you have a discography like hers, entering that august company is high praise indeed, but we'll get to that in a later video. But the fact that it's still one of the best albums of 2018, even with that fact, speaks volumes to her talent as a songwriter, and the fact that Dave Cobb can actually deliver a song with a good bass line when he's called upon. And yeah, The Lot Behind St. Mary's, it plays a very similar iconography to a song like We Were Cool from The Bird and the Rifle that made my year-end list back in 2016, but it gains real teeth through the restraint, and the fact that Lori McKenna embraces the conflicted struggle with small-town religion directly in the modern age. And what's more telling is that for as much as that church has a presence in that community, it doesn't provide all the answers. And the fractured relationship in its wake is all the more real for how it happened and its long, lingering, kind of bitter aftermath. And when you pair it with all the lost dreams and the textured details, both in the lyrics and the production, it's the quiet sort of heartbreak that earns every detail. And I'll always be a fan of songs that can take religious subtext and then spin it into a very complicated human reality. And for this, yeah, beautiful one indeed. So if you've been wondering where the Dessa songs start on this list, yeah, right here, with a sort of sleeper hit that nevertheless can really get under my skin. Well, okay, maybe just be more unique to me than most. Dessa made a song for the intellectual overachievers of the world, having quiet barroom moments knocking back bourbon, and when you pair it with some of the stunning ethereal harmonies and a subtle sense of this melancholic wistfulness, yeah, there was no way this wasn't making my list, especially given how frankly Dessa addresses being ever so lonely in that lane. And yeah, this is getting a little too real, like all these lists do, so yeah. If you've only ever heard the singles coming off of Chime, this is the sleeper you definitely need.
When you get out of bed, don't end up stranded, horrified with each stone on the stage, my little dog cage.
It's kind of stunning how many people seem to have forgotten that MGMT put out their most accessible and arguably one of their best albums this year. And if there's a song to canonize that, it is Little Dark Age, which takes this weird, gothic, burbling discomfort and channels it into a kick-ass synth-pop song that highlights all little toxins secreted away in a larger, a lot more unstable world. And really, that lingering sense that that toxic darkness is being exposed to drive to this darker conclusion, it gives the song a remarkable amount of hidden edge. It references police violence and protest with the expectations that humanity's worst impulses will begin to bubble free. And the eerie, calm, but barely restrained coursing panic beneath the song, it's hard to deny. Definitely seems that this song might have been overlooked, likely because people consider it more a 2017 song than one that came out this year on that album. But yeah, for me, it fits and belongs on this list. Granted, on the flip side, if you want to make your apocalypse as riotous and dance-ready as possible, you've got Ghost to deliver the poppiest song of their entire catalog with the coursing groove and the huge hook that if this was 1983 or 1985, it would be a #1 smash hit on Billboard and this band would be ubiquitous by now. Sadly, we don't live in such halcyon times, most because rock decided that it wants to abandon groove and catchiness in favor of overcompressed, meat-headed chest pounding, but hey, Dance Macabre still exists and it rules regardless. I've always been a fan of how this band will embrace more melody and write a guitar solo that actually complements the song rather than overwhelming it. So what if it's a goofy, quasi-satanic dance song? I've been to my fair share of goth and metal bars. We need those songs too. And if there's a track that I would put money on joining the permanent rotation of a lot of those locales that are in the low, yeah, it's this. It's just too damn fun to deny. I'll dance for this, for sure. So here's the thing. What some of you might not know is that this is a cover of an indie rock staple from 2005 by the band Crooked Fingers, who were indie darlings for a long time until they weren't. And this song has been covered before. Matt Berninger of The National and St. Vincent actually teamed up to try it, and speaking as a fan of both acts, the cover is terrible and probably should never have happened. It never worked properly. So when you get Neko Case teaming up with the original songwriter and singer Eric Bachmann in order to recreate it, she's starting off on the right foot, but frankly, this is just eons better than the original, which is playing to a placid coffeehouse vibe that misses all the melancholy and deeply rooted sadness of this version that gets so much better. The sweeping, tasteful production anchored more in the piano, Eric Bachmann leaning into the aged weariness and showing a ton of chemistry with Neko Case, and overall just making the sort of aching, heartbroken power ballad that says more through subtext than any words. And I would change for you, but baby, that doesn't mean I'm gonna be a better man. Might just be one of my favorite lyrics of all time, hands down. So yeah, it is a cover, but it absolutely deserves to be on this list, especially considering how much it just passes the original. Seriously, this rules.
I don't like the quiet, that's why you got invited. Oh fuck it, my rights, come my rights, come my rights, come my rights.
Dessa's Ride is the sort of introduction that crams so much detail and nuance into every passing line, it's almost too much to take in, especially for a slow burn song that serves to reintroduce her after what might seem like a long absence in between solo albums into a much darker, much scarier world around her. The language is colloquial and its bad date that sours her into the murky night into revisiting an old haunt, seeing women making many of the same bad decisions she may have once done herself, but knowing that any words from her, it wouldn't stop them. And then the final verse kicks in, and we realize it's not just an old bar she's finding herself in, but a world that has likely changed for the worse, and the creeping, hammering dread of the percussion just sets it all alight. It's a darker, crueler place in which she's walking, with societal norms that are crumbling around her, feeling so very huge in its production, but not quite crushing to make her feel small. It's a smoky, atmospheric cut intended to coax up some dread for the album to come, and for as amazingly quotable as it is, Dessa got it there. But you know what, on the topic of bad decisions, the fact that Poets of the Fall could assemble one of their most anthemic and soaring songs celebrating willful denial for those gleaming guitars, those gleaming keys, that pulsating groove, and that massive hook, it's a wonder to behold. And that's before we get the heavenly bridge that makes the return to the hook all the more divine and prescient and powerful. Returning to their old production approach was always going to inspire wonder as it complements Marco Seresto's tremendous voice, but when Poets of the Fall used to make this sort of transcendent, pop-leaning alternative rock, it's stunning to behold, folks, even if the song knows it's for all the wrong reasons. And yet somehow, that makes the glory just seem all the damn sweeter. And while we're on this subject, so yeah, this is Fox Sing's best song. No, I'm not going to hear an argument on this one. I went through their entire discography and back catalog this year. This is easily one of the most experimental but genuinely insane cuts they have ever tried. And the fact that it manages to work at all with that grimy, spasmodic beat, the brittle keys, the guitars careening out of control as the groove barely stabilizes, and frontman Connor Murphy forcing his falsetto into even more grotesque shapes. Yeah, it's almost a little bit unnerving, but that's the point. The entire song is built to be deeply unsettling to its target audience, taking the same addictive high of making what your mind is telling you is the wrong decision and exploiting privilege and cheating to get fame and fortune, and yet it's that rush from which you can't walk away. It's a song that recognizes the heady addiction that comes with transgression and then leans into the manic thrill-seeking to the point that you're just waiting for the cheating to backfire, for this dream to turn into a nightmare, until the cruelest reality sets in, that the game just becomes a little boring when you cheat your way to the top. The gut punch that hits Foxing really just to drive home that point. It's arguably one of the most prescient and pummeling dissections of privilege I've seen in art, period. And with a genuinely unsettling song to boot, hell, what can beat it?
I don't keep on, see something, go ahead and say something.
You know, at the end of the day, for as much genre hopping and singing as she might do, Dessa at her core is a rapper. And in terms of pure braggadocious flair, it's hard to beat a song like this, especially as her approach to crushing her competition. It's very much in the tradition of regular battle rap. She'll cauterize her own wounds in order to set yours ablaze, and makes her embrace of layered but very primal metaphor all the more shocking. This is a tactic she's used on songs before, like Grey Duck, but on 5 out of 6, she hones her skills like a bloodied veteran who doesn't need to conceal a goddamn thing. You know she's coming. There's fire on the horizon, and the alien swell of the production does a powerful job driving home how much she just becomes an elemental force to be reckoned with, like a thunderstorm of the goddamn tides. And what's so damn potent is that the human side is still very much evident in her presence, in her bars, which with her tightly controlled delivery only serves to amp up the tension even higher. It is a monster of a hip-hop song, easily one of the best of the year. What could be better?
But everything's fine if I try to remain like powder cocaine.
Yo, I be fine like powder cocaine.
So I've seen Evidence fans grapple with the song, because if you're a longtime fan of him, you know kind of how strange, damn near one of a kind a song like this is coming from him. Arguably with the best hook that he's ever had, courtesy of Cataro, and then Slug delivering a callback-laced guest verse that wins on all fronts. This song still has the meditative power of Evidence's best work, but just layered it into a traditionally structured song full of subtle melodic embellishments with the wheedling spikes of guitar and the flashes of atmospheric swell. Really, the Alchemist delivered in spades here. But what truly clicks about this song is that it's both immediately comfortable for both MCs, but it's got enough aspirational spark to make them want to chase more of that dream and then catch it. Something that for as long mature artists, that's something they can now approach with real consideration and bringing gravitas to the table as veterans. It's amazingly quotable, the hit record that I don't think Slug or Evidence were setting out to create, but one that's got the sort of wide appeal to win over pretty much everyone all the same, followed in the smartest possible choice by making this a single, and arguably, it's damn near flawless. It was my song of the year for a lot of this year, so what could be better? At this point, looking back through the songs that I have loved over the past 5 years, you can spot some trends. Huge hooks tend to be a must, followed by a raw, uncompromising honesty and a crescendo that can stick the landing. And if you just so happen to have fused the song with self-awareness, a sense of optimism, and pseudo-religious subtext, look, I'm not gonna say it bypasses my critical faculties, but it gives the song a real boost. And I'm also not gonna say that seeing this song performed live clinched this spot, although it certainly helped. No, what made Sinner my #1 song of this year is that it takes all that fervor, all that spark, molds it into a pop context that makes sense, certainly better than anything the 1975 tried, who Def Havana were then accused of emulating, and then it just shifts all that melodrama straight to the stars for huge swell that is anchored by how much the protagonist within it is a burned out shell of himself that's got nothing left to prove and everything to gain. And while every music critic tries to place the art they love in the larger cultural context or to prove how they're in touch with the zeitgeist, I think for anybody who spent 2018 on the perpetual edge of exhaustion like I did, this is the song that's gonna click the most. The pop move that Def Havana could not stick across the rest of the album, but goddamn, they delivered one perfect song along that way. So that's it. Sinner by Def Havana, the best song of 2018. But hey, what's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Be happy to hear all this and happy for you all to tell me how wrong I am. It's bound to be entertaining. And hey, if you guys want to actually like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.